I was thinking for a minute about fear. That kind of fear. That fear that holds us back, that fear that stops us from doing something, that fear that doesn't want to open that door, or that fear that causes you to yell to the person in the movie screen not to open the door, right? In certain set scenarios. What causes that? Well, first, let's understand everybody goes through fear. I don't know that I've met somebody that hasn't experienced fear in some fashion and still maybe even part of their regular job has fear. I bet you if we asked a football player that, scoring the winning point or doing one of those things, I don't watch a lot of sports, so one of those things, they score a goal or hockey, I don't know what inning a football game ends. Anyway, moving forward, they all have fear. Professionals have fear. We have fear as individuals. What causes all that? Unknown, mostly. Yeah, unknown. We haven't had to experience something before, so our brain starts making assumptions about what could happen, and the next thing you know, your brain switches to panic about what could happen, and now we have fear. Why is that applicable to me talking on Amplify Your Influence about it? Because fear can amplify your influence. Fear can motivate you. Fear can give you energy to do something. You have the fear of not paying your bills. You have the fear of your family not eating. You could have the fear of going through life and feeling like you didn't count, even though you always did. That fear of regret. That's what motivates a lot of people. That's what gets them to take that fear and harness it and move it forward. Now, the fear of jumping over a canyon and things like that, totally different kind of fear here. That is the fear of the unknown, of dying and hurting myself severely and impaling myself on something, right? It's not that type of fear. It's the fear that prevents us. One of the biggest fears people have is public speaking. I never seem to have a problem with it. I stand on street corners with signs and talk to people all the time. I'm kidding. I would stand on a street corner and talk to people if I could get through people, but we're helping people like this, so I don't have to yet. Using the word yet. So you got to watch all our videos in order to get connections to things, because the ADD, which we'll talk about at some point in time, allows me to jump subjects at random and go back to them at random. So if you follow along, you'll get the story. Back to fear. I have a cool sign that says, "Please don't feed the fears," that's in my office, not displayed behind me. Why? Because I try to prep myself into that. And what I mean by feeding the fears is the minute those moments come over you, where you have that anxiety, that rush where you're concerned, that's when you need to figure out how to stop it. How do you stop the fear, right? We're all trying to find solutions. And since each person's reaction to fear is going to be different, therefore, technically, each person's solution could be different. So let me share one. Why? Why? I mean, why not share one? No, I'm sharing one called why. Framing. Okay. Why? Every time you get that worked up, think for a second, why? Why am I feeling that way? The other part is, if we fear the unknown, I have this gorilla on the table experiment that I'll do with some people. We'll say, okay, if we're that concerned about what's going to happen, we're that fearful about it, let's get a whiteboard or a marker or a piece of paper right now, and let's write down what the worst possible thing you could think of would happen. Even to where elephants come busting through the facility, whatever this fear is, write it down, commit it to paper. Because then you can look at it and go, that doesn't seem so bad. And people wonder, well, how did that just change? Here's why. You just wrote the fear down. You read it in a different context than the anxiety, which you were falsely experiencing it. So by writing it down, you saw the fear. So now you experienced it by writing it down, and it took away its energy. That's why the anxiety just went away when you just wrote down what your fear was. Another great way to do that outside of the why issue, keep a journal. Yeah, not like the diaries we had as kids, but journals. Every time you get this workup, write it down, commit it. Because again, when you look at it, it takes away its energy. Just like we talked earlier, where you choose to be upset, but you can choose not to be. I can choose to live in fear. I can choose not to be. When I address my fear and I face it, now I've experienced it by writing it down, seems to take away its energy. All right? So let's don't feed the fears out there, and let's amplify that influence.